Marcus Chun wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last cargo container onto the alien transport ship. The Zephyrians had hired him for what they called a simple freight run to their mining colony on Kepler 442b. Simple jobs paid simple wages. But Marcus needed every credit he could get to keep his beat-up freighter running. The Zephyrians were tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms and a reputation for being practical jokers. Marcus had worked with them before and knew they liked to mess with humans, but their credits were good. Captain Vexstar, the leader of this particular crew, approached with what Marcus had learned to recognize as their version of a grin. "Human Marcus," Vexstar said in heavily accented English, "we have special bonus job for you. Very easy work, much extra payment." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What kind of special job?" "Our mining operation has small problem. Ancient cave system blocks our equipment. We need someone to go inside, check if safe for explosives. You humans are small, perfect for tight spaces." The offer was tempting. Marcus's ship needed new engine coils, and the repair bills were piling up. "How much extra payment are we talking about?" "Double your current fee," Vexstar said without hesitation. "Just walk through cave, take readings with scanner, come back out. 1 hour maximum." Marcus considered it. Cave exploration wasn't exactly in his job description, but the money would solve his immediate problems. "All right, I'll do it. But I want half the bonus up front." "Agreed," Vexstar said quickly, almost too quickly. Behind him, the other Zephyrians made chittering sounds that Marcus assumed was their version of laughter. 2 days later, they reached Kepler 442b. The planet was mostly desert with scattered mountain ranges. The mining colony sat in a valley between red stone cliffs. As they landed, Marcus noticed something odd about the other Zephyrians' behavior. They kept looking at him, making those chittering sounds. Even the usually serious crew members seemed unusually cheerful. The cave entrance was larger than Marcus had expected. Ancient symbols covered the stone archway, worn smooth by centuries of wind and sand. The opening disappeared into darkness that seemed to swallow their flashlight beams. "You sure this place is safe?" Marcus asked, adjusting the scanner device they had given him. "Perfectly safe," Vexstar assured him. "Our sensors detect no dangerous gases, no unstable rocks. Just old empty cave." Marcus clipped a communication device to his belt and activated his helmet lights. "How deep do I need to go?" "Just until scanner shows full reading of cave system," Vexstar replied. "Should not take long." As Marcus approached the entrance, he heard more chittering from the Zephyrians. One of them was holding what looked like a recording device. Marcus paused. "Are you filming this?" "Just for safety records," Vexstar said smoothly. "Standard procedure for cave exploration." Something felt wrong, but Marcus needed the money. He stepped into the cave, his lights cutting through the darkness. The tunnel was wider than it appeared from outside, with smooth walls that looked almost polished. Strange crystals embedded in the rock gave off a faint blue glow. Behind him, he heard the Zephyrians talking in their own language, followed by what sounded suspiciously like excited chittering. Marcus keyed his communication device. "Everything all right out there?" "All good, human Marcus," came Vexstar's voice. "Keep going deeper. Scanner needs more data." The tunnel began to slope downward. Marcus noticed that the air was getting warmer, not cooler as he had expected. The walls showed more of those ancient symbols, and they seemed to be getting more complex the deeper he went. Some of them almost looked like they were glowing. After about 10 minutes of walking, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. Marcus whistled softly as his lights revealed the space around him. The cavern was huge, easily the size of a football stadium. Crystalline formations hung from the ceiling like chandeliers, and the walls were covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell some kind of story, but what caught his attention most was the smell. It wasn't the musty odor he expected from an old cave. Instead, there was something familiar about it, something that reminded him of his grandfather's old forge. Back on Earth, Marcus activated the scanner and began taking readings. The device beeped steadily as it analyzed the chamber. According to its display, the cave system extended much deeper underground, with multiple levels and passages. But there was something else the scanner was picking up. Heat signatures. Lots of them. Vexstar, Marcus called into his communicator. I'm getting some weird readings down here. The scanner shows multiple heat sources deeper in the cave system. There was a pause before Vexstar's voice came back, and Marcus could swear he heard more chittering in the background. Must be geothermal activity. Very common on this planet. Please continue scanning. Marcus frowned but kept moving through the chamber. As he walked, he began to notice more details. Scorch marks on some of the walls. Piles of what looked like old bones in the corners. And everywhere, those strange symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light. He was halfway across the chamber when he heard it. A deep, rumbling sound that seemed to come from somewhere far below. The sound grew louder, and Marcus felt vibrations through the cave floor. This wasn't geothermal activity. This was something alive, and it was big. Marcus keyed his communicator again. Vexstar, I think there's something else down here. Something large and probably dangerous. I'm coming back up. No. Vexstar's voice was sharp. Scanner not complete yet. Must go deeper for full reading. I don't think that's a good idea, Marcus said. Whatever's making that noise doesn't sound friendly. It's just cave settling, Vexstar insisted. Perfectly normal. Please continue mission. The rumbling sound came again, closer this time. Marcus made a decision. He started walking quickly back toward the entrance tunnel. But as he reached the chamber's edge, he heard something that made his blood run cold. Heavy footsteps. Multiple sets of them, coming up from the deeper passages. Marcus ran. He sprinted through the tunnel, his helmet lights bouncing wildly as he rushed toward the surface. Behind him, the footsteps were getting louder, accompanied by what sounded like low, growling voices speaking in a language he didn't recognize, when he finally burst out of the cave entrance. Gasping and sweating, he found the Zephyrians waiting exactly where he had left them. But something was wrong. They were all standing much further from the cave mouth than before, and they had weapons drawn. What the hell is going on? Marcus demanded. Vexstar's expression had changed completely. The friendly demeanor was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Human Marcus, he said carefully, we may have made small mistake about cave contents. The rumbling sound echoed from deep within the cave, much louder now. Whatever was down there was coming up, and it was angry. Marcus stared at the Zephyrians in disbelief. What kind of mistake? Before Vexstar could answer, a deep roar echoed from the cave entrance. The sound was so powerful that loose rocks tumbled from the cliff face above them. The Zephyrians immediately raised their weapons, backing away from the cave mouth. The kind where we may have forgotten to mention the dragons, Vexstar said weakly. Dragons? Marcus's voice cracked. You sent me into a dragon lair? Was supposed to be funny joke, one of the other Zephyrians said. Humans always claim to be brave. We wanted to see how brave when faced with ancient Earth legends. Marcus felt anger building in his chest. You use me as bait for your entertainment? Not bait exactly, Vexstar protested. More like test subject. Dragon's been sleeping for many cycles. We thought they stay sleeping. Another roar came from the cave, followed by the sound of massive claws scraping against stone. Orange light began to flicker from deep within the tunnel, growing brighter by the second. Well, they're definitely awake now, Marcus snapped. How many dragons are we talking about? Planetary records say maybe dozen, Vexstar admitted. But records very old, could be more by now. The first dragon emerged from the cave mouth just as Vexstar finished speaking. Marcus had seen pictures of dragons in old Earth stories, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. The creature was enormous, easily 30 feet long from nose to tail. Its scales were deep red with gold edges, and they seemed to shimmer with their own internal fire. Wings that could have covered a small building folded against its back. But what struck Marcus most were its eyes. They were intelligent, ancient, and currently very angry. The dragon's massive head swiveled toward the group of aliens, and Marcus was sure they were all about to become crispy snacks. But then something unexpected happened. The dragon's gaze fell on Marcus, and its expression changed completely. The anger faded from its eyes, replaced by what looked almost like surprise. The dragon tilted its head, studying Marcus with obvious curiosity. It sniffed the air, and Marcus caught the scent of sulfur and hot metal. Behind the first dragon, more shapes moved in the cave entrance. Two more massive forms emerged into the daylight, followed by several smaller ones. Marcus counted at least 8 dragons of various sizes, all of them focused entirely on him. "Why are they staring at me like that?" Marcus whispered. "Do not know," Vexstar replied, his voice barely audible. "Maybe deciding which sauce goes best with human." But the dragons weren't acting like predators sizing up prey. The largest one, a massive black and gold creature that had to be the leader, stepped forward slowly. Its movement was careful, almost respectful. When it was about 10 feet away from Marcus, it did something that made everyone's jaw drop. The dragon lowered its great head in what was, unmistakably, a bow. Marcus stared in shock. Did that dragon just bow to me? The other dragons followed suit, each lowering their heads in turn. Even the smaller ones, who Marcus realized were probably juveniles, performed the gesture with obvious reverence. The Zephyrians were making rapid, chittering sounds. But these weren't the amused sounds from before. They sounded panicked. "This not supposed to happen," Vexstar said, his forearms shaking as he kept his weapon trained on the dragons. "Dragons supposed to eat human? We record funny video. Everyone laughs back home," the lead dragon spoke. Its voice was deep and resonant, like thunder rolling through mountains. But Marcus was shocked to realize he could understand it. Somehow, the words formed clearly in his mind despite the creature speaking in what was obviously not English. "Ancient One," the dragon said, "we have waited long for your return." Marcus looked around to see who the dragon was talking to, but realized all eyes were still on him. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm not ancient anything. I'm just a cargo hauler from Earth." "Earth," the dragon repeated, and its eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Yes, the first world. The world of the Makers." "Makers?" Marcus was completely lost. The second dragon, a deep blue creature with silver markings, spoke up. "You carry the scent of the forge fires. The scent of those who shaped us from base metal and cosmic flame." Marcus's mind raced. His grandfather had been a metal worker, and Marcus had spent countless hours in his forge as a child. The smell of hot metal and burning coal had become so familiar that he barely noticed it anymore. But apparently the dragons did. "I don't understand what you're talking about," Marcus said honestly. "I've never shaped anything but cargo manifest." The lead dragon studied him intently. "You speak truth, yet you carry the mark? Show us your hands." Marcus hesitated, then held out his hands. The dragons leaned forward to examine them. His palms were calloused from years of manual labor, and old burn scars from his grandfather's forge marked his fingers. "And the marks of the forge," the blue dragon said with something like reverence. "The sacred scars of creation. These are just burns from when I was learning metalwork as a kid," Marcus protested. "You were taught the ancient ways," the lead dragon said. "Even in these latter days, the knowledge survives." Behind Marcus, Vexstar was frantically speaking into his communicator in the Zephyrian language. From what Marcus could pick up, he was calling for backup and explaining to someone that their prank had gone seriously wrong. "Look," Marcus said to the dragons, "I think you've got me confused with someone else. I'm nobody special. Just a guy trying to make a living hauling freight." The smallest dragon, barely larger than a horse, spoke up in a voice that sounded young but earnest. "The ancient stories say the Makers would return in humble forms, that they would not know their own greatness until the time was right." "What ancient stories?" Marcus asked. The lead dragon's eyes seemed to look through Marcus rather than at him. "When your kind first walked among the stars, they found us as we were then. Wild creatures driven by instinct and hunger, but they saw potential in us. They taught us language, wisdom, the ways of civilization. They showed us how to be more than mere beasts." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "My kind? You mean humans?" "The Makers," the dragon confirmed. "They promised that one day they would return, when the universe had need of their guidance again." They said we would know them by their scent, by the marks of their trade, by their willingness to walk fearlessly into our domain. Marcus looked back at the cave entrance. He had walked in there without really knowing what he was facing. At the time, it had seemed like desperation driven by financial need. But the dragons apparently saw it differently. You walked into our lair alone and unarmed, the blue dragon observed. Either you are very brave or very foolish. Definitely the second one, Marcus muttered. The dragons made a sound that might have been laughter. Humility, the lead dragon said. Another mark of the true makers, Vextar's voice interrupted the moment. Human Marcus, backup ships arrive soon. Suggest we leave quickly before situation becomes more complicated. Marcus looked at the dragons, then at the scared Zephyrians. Something told him that running away right now would be a mistake. These creatures believed he was something he wasn't, but they were treating him with respect and even reverence. Meanwhile, the aliens who had brought him here had used him as entertainment. What if I don't want to leave? Marcus said. Vextar's blue skin turned an even deeper shade, which Marcus had learned indicated extreme stress in Zephyrians. Human Marcus, this very bad idea. Dragons are dangerous. You must come with us now. Marcus looked at the assembled dragons, who were still watching him with obvious respect and interest. None of them had made any threatening moves. In fact, they seemed to be waiting for him to make a decision. They don't look dangerous to me, Marcus said. They look like they want to talk? That because they think you are some kind of maker god? Vextar protested. When they realize you just normal human, they will be very angry about deception. The lead dragon's massive head turned toward Vextar, and the alien instinctively took several steps backward. Small speaker, the dragon said, its voice carrying clear disdain. You brought the Ancient One to us as mockery, did you not? Vextar's forearms trembled as he tried to hold his weapon steady. It was just harmless prank. Humans always bragging about their courage. We wanted to test it. You used one of the makers as entertainment, the blue dragon snarled, smoke beginning to curl from its nostrils. This is why your kind was never worthy of the gift of true speech. Marcus stepped forward quickly, sensing the tension building. Hey, let's all calm down. Nobody needs to get burned here. The dragons immediately turned their attention back to him, the anger leaving their expressions. You speak wisdom, Ancient One, the lead dragon said. Violence serves no purpose when understanding can be found. Exactly, Marcus said, though he was making this up as he went along. And I think there's been a misunderstanding all around. Maybe we should sit down and talk about this properly. The smallest dragon perked up. You would honor us with a formal audience? Marcus wasn't sure what a formal audience involved, but it sounded better than standing around in the desert sun. Sure, why not? The dragons immediately began moving into what looked like a ceremonial formation. The smaller ones arranged themselves in a semicircle, while the larger ones took positions that seemed to indicate rank or importance. The lead dragon gestured toward the cave entrance with one wing. Please, Ancient One, enter our home as the honored guest you are. Vextar made a strangled sound. Human Marcus, do not go back in cave. This all getting too crazy. Marcus turned to face the Zephyrians. You know what, Vextar? You brought me here as a joke. You wanted to see me get scared or maybe eaten. Well, turns out the joke's on you, because these dragons are treating me with more respect than you've ever shown any human. But the backup ships, Vextar protested. They will be here soon. Military ships with weapons. The lead dragon's eyes narrowed. You have called warriors to attack us? Not attack, Vextar said quickly. Just precaution. Standard protocol when dealing with potentially dangerous wildlife? The temperature around the dragons seemed to rise several degrees. Marcus could feel heat radiating from their bodies as their anger built. Wildlife? The blue dragon repeated, its voice deadly quiet. Did this creature just call us wildlife? Marcus realized the situation was about to spiral out of control. Look, everyone needs to take a deep breath here. Vextar, these are obviously sentient beings, not wildlife. And dragons, he's just scared and saying stupid things. The Ancient One shows mercy even to those who would insult us, the lead dragon observed. Truly, the wisdom of the Makers has not diminished. A distant rumbling sound made everyone look up. 3 Zephyrian military ships were approaching from the horizon, their weapon systems clearly visible. "This is bad," Marcus muttered. "Those ships see a bunch of large creatures threatening their people. They're going to shoot first and ask questions later." The lead dragon followed his gaze. "Shall we defend ourselves, Ancient One?" Marcus had a sudden vision of dragons breathing fire at military ships while he stood in the middle of an interstellar incident. "No, absolutely not. Let me think for a minute." The dragons waited patiently while Marcus tried to work out a solution. The Zephyrians were backing away, clearly planning to be as far from the cave as possible when their military arrived. The approaching ships were close enough now that Marcus could make out their weapon arrays. "Okay," Marcus said finally. "Here's what we're going to do. Dragons, I need you to move away from the cave entrance and try to look non-threatening. Vexstar, you're going to get on your communicator and tell those ships that the situation is under control." "Under control?" Vexstar squeaked. "Situation is completely out of control. Only if we let it get that way," Marcus said firmly. "These dragons are intelligent beings and they have every right to exist on this planet. Your people need to respect that." The lead dragon tilted its massive head. "You would negotiate on our behalf, Ancient One?" "I'm willing to try," Marcus said. "But you have to trust me and do what I ask." The dragons looked at each other, then back at Marcus. "We will follow your guidance," the lead dragon said. The military ships were getting closer. Marcus could see that they were combat vessels armed with energy weapons capable of doing serious damage. He also noticed that more dragons had emerged from the cave system. There were at least 20 visible now, ranging from massive, ancient-looking creatures to juveniles barely larger than earth horses. "Vexstar," Marcus called out. "Get those ships to maintain distance and hold fire. Tell them I'm conducting first contact negotiations." "First contact?" Vexstar looked confused. "But we already know about dragons. They in planetary database as extinct megafauna." "Well, obviously the database is wrong," Marcus snapped. "These are sentient beings with language and culture. This is a diplomatic situation now." The blue dragon spoke up. "The Ancient One speaks truth. We have watched your kind mine our world for many cycles, but we chose to remain hidden. Your people show no respect for the places they dig. You've been watching the mining operation?" Marcus asked. "Of course," the smallest dragon piped up. "They make terrible noise and leave ugly scars on the mountain. But the Elder Council said we should not interfere unless they threatened the sacred places." The military ships were close enough now that Marcus could see their targeting systems tracking the dragons. Red targeting beams swept across the group. "This is Commander Zichter of the Zephyrian Defense Force," came a voice through Vexstar's communicator. "Stand away from the hostile creatures immediately." "They're not hostile," Marcus called back, hoping the communicator would pick up his voice. "These are intelligent beings." "I'm conducting first contact protocols." "Negative. Planetary records indicate these creatures are extinct predators. Stand clear so we can neutralize the threat." The dragons stirred uneasily as the targeting beams continued to paint them. Several of the larger ones began to spread their wings, and Marcus could see the glow of building fire in their throats. "Ancient One," the lead dragon said quietly, "perhaps it is time to show these lesser beings why their ancestors learned to respect the Makers." Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead. "What exactly would that involve?" "A demonstration of the power that flows through your bloodline," the blue dragon said. "The same power that once taught us to be more than we were." "I don't have any special powers," Marcus protested. "I'm just a regular human." "Perhaps," the lead dragon said, "you have simply forgotten how to use them." The military ships were moving into attack formation. Marcus realized he had maybe 30 seconds before this turned into a battle that would end with a lot of dead dragons and probably dead aliens too. "Okay," he said desperately. "What do I need to do?" The lead dragon moved closer to Marcus, its ancient eyes fixed on his. "Place your hand upon my head, Ancient One," Let the old connection be renewed. Marcus hesitated for a split second, then reached up and placed his palm against the dragon's massive forehead. The scales were warm, almost hot to the touch, and he could feel a strange vibration running through them. The moment their skin made contact, something incredible happened. Energy surged through Marcus's body, starting from his hand and spreading through every nerve and muscle. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming. Images flashed through his mind, vast star charts, ancient forges burning with cosmic fire, and creatures of incredible beauty and power being shaped from raw energy. But more than the images, Marcus felt knowledge flowing into him. Not his knowledge, but something much older. The accumulated wisdom of generations of dragons, and behind that, the faint echo of something even more ancient. The makers, whoever they had been, had left traces of themselves embedded in the dragon's genetic memory. "By the burning stars," Marcus whispered, his voice carrying new resonances. When he spoke now, the dragon's language flowed from his lips as naturally as English. "I can see it. I can see what they did." The military ships were seconds away from opening fire when Marcus stepped forward, one hand still touching the lead dragon's head. When he spoke, his voice carried across the desert with impossible clarity. "Commander Ziegler," he called out, and somehow his words reached the ships despite the distance. "I am Marcus Chun, representing Earth and humanity. I am conducting first contact negotiations with the sovereign dragon nation of Kepler 442. Be any aggressive action against? These beings will be considered an act of war against humanity." There was silence from the ships for several long seconds. Then Commander Ziegler's voice came back, sounding confused. "Earth representative? We were not informed of any Earth diplomatic presence in this system." Marcus felt the dragon's memories guiding his words. Humanity has had agreements with the dragons of this world for over 3,000 years. These agreements predate any Zephyrian claims to this planet. It wasn't exactly true, but it wasn't exactly false either. The knowledge flowing through Marcus showed him that humans had indeed encountered dragons before, in the early days of space exploration. The details were fuzzy, but the connection was real. "Impossible," came Vextar's voice. "Humans only achieved interstellar flight 500 years ago." Marcus smiled, feeling more confident as the ancient knowledge settled into his mind. "Zephyrian records are incomplete?" Humanity's first contact with dragons occurred during what we call the Pioneer Era. The dragons chose to withdraw from galactic politics, but they never renounced their territorial rights. The blue dragon stepped forward, adding its voice to the conversation. The small speaker tells truth. We withdrew to avoid conflict, but we never abandoned our homeworld. We merely chose to remain unseen. "You can speak our language?" Commander Ziegler sounded genuinely surprised. "We can speak many languages," the smallest dragon replied cheerfully. "We learn them by listening to your transmissions. Your mining crews are very loud." Marcus could sense the shift in the situation. The military ships were still in attack formation, but the targeting beams had stopped moving. Commander Ziegler was clearly trying to figure out how to handle a diplomatic situation he hadn't been prepared for. "Commander," Marcus said, pressing his advantage, "I suggest you contact your superiors and inform them that this is now a diplomatic matter. Any actions taken against the dragons will have serious consequences for Zephyrian-human relations." "We must verify your credentials," Commander Ziegler replied. "This situation is highly irregular." The lead dragon spoke up, its voice carrying the weight of ages. "While you verify credentials, perhaps you could explain why your people sent one of our ancient allies into our home as entertainment." There was another long silence from the ships. Marcus could practically hear Commander Ziegler trying to figure out how to respond to that question. Vextar, meanwhile, was having what appeared to be a nervous breakdown. His forearms were flailing as he spoke rapidly into his communicator in the Zephyrian language. From what Marcus could understand, he was trying to explain to his superiors that their simple prank had turned into a major diplomatic incident. "Ancient One," the blue dragon said quietly, "the knowledge flows through you more easily than we had hoped. Perhaps you truly are one of the returned makers." Marcus shook his head, though he kept his hand in contact with the lead dragon. The connection was making everything clearer, but he was still fundamentally human. I'm not a maker. But I think I understand now what the makers were. Tell us, the smallest dragon said eagerly. They were humans, Marcus said slowly, working through the implications as he spoke. But not like modern humans. They were from the very early days of space exploration, when humanity was just beginning to understand what was possible out here among the stars. The images flowing through the dragon connection became clearer. Marcus could see it now. Small groups of human explorers, working with primitive technology by modern standards, making contact with various species across the galaxy. Not as conquerors or colonists, but as teachers and learners. They shared knowledge, Marcus continued. Not just with your people, but with dozens of species. They helped civilizations develop, taught them new technologies, learned from them in return. They were trying to build something. A galaxy of cooperation, the lead dragon said, its mental voice mixing with its spoken words. A community of worlds working together instead of fighting for dominance. What happened to them? Marcus asked. The dragon's mental voice carried deep sadness. They spread too thin? Too few humans, too many worlds that needed help, and some species were not ready for what they offered. Wars began. The makers were caught in the middle of conflicts they had tried to prevent. Marcus felt a chill as more images flowed through the connection. Battles in space, burning worlds, the gradual retreat of human exploration ships as the galaxy became too dangerous for small groups of peaceful explorers. They pulled back to Earth, Marcus realized. The surviving makers returned home and humanity forgot about the early exploration period. Not forgot, the blue dragon corrected. The knowledge was preserved, but it became legend. Stories of heroes who walked among dragons and spoke with gods. The communication system crackled to life again. Earth Representative Chun, came Commander Ziekter's voice. We have contacted Sector Command. They are sending a diplomatic vessel to handle this situation. In the meantime, we have orders to maintain position but take no aggressive action. Marcus felt relief wash through him. Thank you, Commander. I appreciate your restraint. Do not thank me yet, the commander replied. Sector Command has also informed me that there are no official Earth diplomatic missions in this system. They want to know who you really are and what authority you're claiming to act under. The lead dragon's mental voice carried what felt like amusement. It seems the descendants of the makers have become quite bureaucratic. Marcus couldn't help but smile at that. You have no idea. But the dragon was right about the problem. Marcus was claiming diplomatic authority he didn't actually have. He was a cargo hauler, not an ambassador. Sooner or later, real officials would arrive and want explanations he couldn't give. Ancient One, the smallest dragon said, what happens when they discover you are not truly a diplomatic speaker? Marcus looked around at the assembled dragons, the nervous Zephyrians, and the military ships maintaining their distance. I don't know, he admitted. But I think we need to figure out a way to make this work anyway. The next 6 hours were a blur of activity. Marcus found himself at the center of an increasingly complex diplomatic situation, with his hand still resting on the lead dragon's head to maintain the knowledge connection. The dragons had explained that the link would fade once contact was broken, and Marcus needed every bit of understanding he could get. 3 more ships had arrived. A Zephyrian diplomatic vessel, a neutral hegemony mediator ship, and to everyone's surprise, an Earth Authority reconnaissance cruiser that happened to be passing through the system. The desert around the cave entrance had turned into an impromptu diplomatic meeting ground. This is highly irregular, declared Ambassador Kylanara, the lead Zephyrian diplomat. She was older than Vexstar, with intricate blue and silver markings that indicated high rank. We cannot simply accept that humans have prior claims to this world based on the word of one unaccredited individual. Marcus was getting tired of being called unaccredited, but he had to admit she had a point. Captain Sarah Rodriguez from the Earth Authority ship had been polite but firm about the fact that Marcus had no official standing to negotiate anything on behalf of humanity. Look, Marcus said for what felt like the 100th time, I never claimed to be a diplomat. This whole situation started because your people used me as a prank victim. I'm just trying to prevent it from turning into a war. The neutral mediator, a tall insectoid being called Arbitrator Zekthal, clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. The question is not whether Mr. Chud has official authority, but whether the dragon's claims have any legal basis. If they are truly a sovereign species with territorial rights, then their wishes must be respected regardless of who speaks for them. The blue dragon, who had introduced herself as Siltharian, spoke up. We have never relinquished our claim to this world. We simply chose to avoid contact with younger species until now. But you have no documentation of these claims, Ambassador Kailanara protested. No treaties, no registered territories, no participation in galactic governance. We predate galactic governance, the lead dragon, who called himself Thurvanian, replied calmly. Our people have lived on this world for over 50,000 years. Your entire civilization has existed for barely 3,000. Captain Rodriguez looked intrigued. You're claiming to be one of the precursor species? We do not claim, Siltharian said. We simply are. Marcus felt a new stream of information flow through the connection. The dragon's history went back much further than he had realized. They weren't just an ancient species, they were one of the first sentient races to achieve spaceflight. But unlike most precursor species, they hadn't vanished or transcended to higher dimensions. They had simply chosen to step back from galactic affairs. The dragons have records, Marcus said suddenly. Cultural memories going back tens of thousands of years. They've been watching galactic civilization develop from the beginning. Arbitrator Zekthal leaned forward with obvious interest. These records could be invaluable for understanding galactic history. Would the dragons be willing to share this information? Thurvanian considered this. Such knowledge is not given lightly. It would require formal recognition of our sovereignty and territorial rights. Which brings us back to the original problem, Ambassador Kailanara said. The Zephyrian Republic has invested significant resources in developing this mining colony. We cannot simply abandon it based on newly discovered claims. The smallest dragon, who had given her name as Fireleth, spoke up. We do not ask you to abandon anything. We only ask that you respect the sacred places and stop trying to feed our ancient allies to us as jokes. Marcus couldn't help but smile at the way Fireleth described the situation. The young dragon had a talent for cutting to the heart of matters. Perhaps, Captain Rodriguez suggested, there's room for compromise here. The dragons clearly have legitimate claims, but the Zephyrians also have legitimate investments. Could there be some kind of shared arrangement? What kind of arrangement? Ambassador Kailanara asked suspiciously. Thurvanian's mental voice whispered to Marcus, sharing ideas and possibilities. Marcus nodded slowly as he began to see a potential solution. The dragons don't actually want to shut down the mining operation, Marcus said. They're concerned about environmental damage and the preservation of certain sacred sites. What if there was a formal agreement that allowed mining to continue under dragon oversight? Oversight? Ambassador Kailanara looked horrified. We cannot accept foreign oversight of our operations. Not foreign, Marcus corrected. Native, the dragons are the original inhabitants of this world. They're offering to work with you, not against you. Siltharian nodded. We know this world better than any other species. We can guide your operations to avoid the deep cavern systems where our eggs are laid, and the thermal vents where our young learn to fly. In exchange, you would help us maintain the ancient sites that preserve our history. And what would the dragons offer in return? Arbitrator Zekthal asked. Marcus felt another surge of information through the connection. The dragons had knowledge that went far beyond simple history. They understood technologies that most species had never dreamed of. Metallurgy, Marcus said. The dragons understand metal working on a level that modern science can barely imagine. They could help the Zephyrians extract rare elements that current technology can't reach. Impossible, Ambassador Kailanara scoffed. Our technology is the most advanced in the sector. Fireleth let out what sounded like a giggle. Watch this. The young dragon approached one of the scanning devices that the diplomatic teams had set up. It was a standard geological analyzer used to identify mineral deposits. Fireleth breathed gently on the device, and suddenly its displays lit up with readings that made the Zephyrian technicians gasp. How did you do that? One of them asked. Dragonfire is not just flame, Fireleth explained proudly. It is energy that can reveal the hidden structure of matter itself. We can find deposits your machines cannot detect. Ambassador Kailanara stared at the readings with obvious fascination. These are showing rare element concentrations we never detected before. Because you look only on the surface, Thurvanian said. We see into the bones of worlds. Marcus could feel the shift in the room. The Zephyrians were beginning to realize that the dragons weren't just obstacles to their mining operation. They could be incredibly valuable partners. This changes the calculations significantly, Ambassador Kailanara admitted. If the dragons could help us locate new deposits. More than locate, Soltharian said. We can teach you to extract elements without damaging the surrounding rock. Your current methods are wasteful. You destroy 10 units of stone to retrieve 1 unit of valuable material. Captain Rodriguez was taking notes rapidly. From Earth's perspective, this sounds like an excellent opportunity for everyone involved. The dragons get recognition and protection of their territories. The Zephyrians get access to enhanced mining techniques. And the galaxy gets a new diplomatic relationship with a precursor species. What about the human involvement? Arbitrator Zekthal asked. Mr. Chun has clearly played a crucial role in establishing contact, but his status remains unclear. Marcus felt Thurvanian's amusement through the connection. Simple, the dragon said aloud. Marcus Chun is our chosen liaison with the younger species. He carries the mark of the Makers and has proven his worth through courage and wisdom. You're making me your ambassador? Marcus asked. If you will accept the role, Soltharian said. You understand us in ways others cannot. The connection flows easily through you. Marcus looked around at the assembled diplomats and dragons. 3 days ago, he had been a simple cargo hauler worried about paying his bills. Now he was being offered a position as humanity's first dragon ambassador. What would that actually involve? He asked. Learning, Thurvanian replied. Growing. Helping to rebuild what the Makers began long ago. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. The Earth Authority would be very interested in formalizing this arrangement. Obviously, there would need to be proper training and official credentials, but the precedent is fascinating. Marcus felt a surge of excitement through the dragon connection. This wasn't just about solving the immediate crisis, it was about something much larger. The dragons had been waiting for centuries for someone who could help them reconnect with the wider galaxy. All right, Marcus said finally. I accept. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in what had once been a simple cave entrance and was now the site of the most unusual embassy in known space. The dragons had worked with Zephyrian engineers to create a meeting space that accommodated both species comfortably. Crystalline formations provided lighting, while carved stone benches allowed human-sized visitors to sit at the same level as dragon heads during conversations. The formal treaty signing had taken place 3 days earlier, with representatives from 17 different governments present. The Dragon Accords, as they were being called, established the first official recognition of dragon sovereignty in galactic history. More importantly, they created a framework for cooperation that was already showing remarkable results. Marcus watched as Fireleth demonstrated advanced metallurgy techniques to a group of fascinated Zephyrian engineers. The young dragon could manipulate metal at the molecular level using precisely controlled flame, creating alloys that conventional technology couldn't produce. The efficiency improvements are extraordinary, Engineer Nexville was saying, his forearms gesturing excitedly as he examined a sample of dragon-forged metal. This alloy has strength characteristics we've never seen before. It's not just strength, Fireleth explained patiently. Watch how it responds to temperature changes. She breathed gently on the metal sample, and it began to glow with soft blue light. As the temperature increased, instead of expanding like normal metal, it actually became more flexible while maintaining its structural integrity. Impossible, Nexville whispered. This violates basic thermodynamic principles. No, Marcus said, stepping forward. It follows thermodynamic principles you haven't discovered yet. The dragons understand energy in ways we're just beginning to grasp. The knowledge connection with Thurvanian had become permanent over the past 2 weeks. Marcus no longer needed physical contact to access the dragon's memories and understanding. It was as if a new part of his brain had awakened, one that could perceive patterns and connections he had never noticed before. "Marcus," came Captain Rodriguez's voice from behind him. She had remained as the Earth Authority's official liaison, helping to establish the new diplomatic protocols. "The council session is about to begin." Marcus nodded and made his way to the central chamber, where the Dragon Council held their formal meetings. It had taken him several days to understand the complex hierarchy of dragon society. Age and wisdom were the primary factors in determining rank, but there were also considerations of magical ability, historical knowledge, and what the dragons called flame purity. Thurvanian occupied the position of elder speaker, making him roughly equivalent to a head of state. Soltharian was the keeper of ancient knowledge, while several other dragons held positions related to territorial management, cultural preservation, and external relations. "Ancient One," Thurvanian said as Marcus entered the chamber. "The reports from the mining sectors have arrived." Marcus had gotten used to being called Ancient One, though he still found it somewhat ridiculous. The dragons insisted that the title was appropriate because he carried the knowledge of the makers within him. He had stopped arguing about it. "How are the operations proceeding?" Marcus asked, settling onto his designated bench. "Better than anticipated," replied Zarthok, the dragon responsible for territorial oversight. "The Zephyrians are adapting quickly to our guidance. Extraction efficiency has improved by 40%, while environmental damage has decreased by 70%. And they're paying the environmental restoration fees as agreed?" Marcus wanted to make sure the financial arrangements were working properly. "All payments are current," Soltharian confirmed. The Zephyrians seemed quite pleased with the arrangement. Ambassador Kylanara has even requested additional dragon consultation for their operations on 3 other worlds. Marcus smiled. The treaty had included provisions for the dragons to share their expertise with Zephyrian mining operations throughout their territory, in exchange for substantial payments and guaranteed environmental protections. It was turning into a very profitable arrangement for everyone involved. "There is other news," Thurvanian said, his mental voice carrying undertones of excitement. "We have received communications from dragon enclaves on 17 different worlds." Marcus sat up straighter. "Other dragons? I thought you were isolated here." "We believe the same," Soltharian said. "But word of the Accords has spread through channels we had forgotten existed. Dragon communities that have been hiding for centuries are reaching out to re-establish contact." "That's incredible," Marcus said. "How many dragons are we talking about?" "Thousands," Thurvanian replied. "Perhaps tens of thousands. My people withdrew from galactic society gradually, scattering to remote worlds and hidden enclaves. We lost contact with many communities over the centuries." "And they're all interested in joining the Accords?" "More than interested," Zarthok said. "Many are eager to emerge from hiding. The success here on Kepler 442b has shown them that cooperation with the younger species is possible." Marcus felt the implications sinking in. What had started as an accidental first contact was turning into something much larger. The dragons weren't just one small community. They were a scattered but substantial galactic civilization that was ready to reclaim its place among the stars. "There's something else," Fireless said, her young voice carrying unusual seriousness. "Some of the elder dragons have memories of other Maker descendants, humans who stayed in contact with dragon communities even after the Great Withdrawal." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "Isolated human colonies that maintained the old alliances," Thurvanian explained. "Communities that kept the Maker traditions alive. They may still exist." Marcus felt excitement building in his chest. "Are you saying there might be other humans who have this same connection to dragon knowledge?" "It is possible," Soltharian said. "The Maker bond was not limited to single individuals. Entire family lines carried the gift for generations. Captain Rodriguez, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. If there are isolated human colonies with advanced knowledge, the Earth Authority would be very interested in re-establishing contact. As would we, Thurvinian said. The old alliances were meant to be permanent. The Makers promised they would return, and perhaps some never truly left. Marcus stood and walked to one of the cave's crystal formations, watching the light play across its faceted surface. 3 weeks ago, he had been worried about paying his bills. Now he was part of something that could reshape galactic civilization. What's our next step? He asked. We establish contact with the other dragon enclaves, Thurvinian said. We help them emerge from hiding safely and join the Accords. And we search for the Lost Maker descendants. It won't be easy, Zarthok warned. Some species will not welcome the return of the dragons. There are those who benefited from our absence and will see our emergence as a threat. Marcus nodded. But we have advantages they don't expect. The dragons have knowledge and abilities that most species have forgotten existed. And humans have diplomatic connections throughout the galaxy. More than that, Soltharian said, we have something the Makers always believed in. The possibility of cooperation instead of conquest. Fireleth bounced excitedly. Can we start with the Andromeda sector? There's a dragon enclave there that's been hiding in an asteroid field for 800 years. They must be so lonely. Marcus couldn't help but smile at the young dragon's enthusiasm. One step at a time, Fireleth. But yes, I think we should definitely start reaching out. Captain Rodriguez activated her recording device. I'll need to send a full report to Earth Authority Command. This is going to change everything. Not change, Thurvinian corrected gently. Restore. We are simply returning to what was always meant to be. Marcus looked around at the assembled dragons and humans working together in a space that bridged both their worlds. A galaxy of cooperation, he said quietly. Yes, Thurvinian replied. As the Makers dreamed it would be. 6 months after the signing of the Dragon Accords, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the starship New Harmony, watching as the ship approached the Vanguard system. They were about to make contact with what appeared to be the largest hidden dragon enclave discovered so far, a community of over 3,000 dragons living in a carefully concealed habitat among the system's asteroid belt, the New Harmony. Itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Built jointly by humans, dragons, and even some reformed Zephyrian engineers, it combined the best technologies of all 3 species. Dragon-forged metals created a hull that was both incredibly strong and surprisingly flexible. Human computer systems provided navigation and communication capabilities. Zephyrian industrial techniques made mass production possible. Contact in 30 minutes, announced Captain Rodriguez, who had accepted the position of commanding officer for what was now being called the Restoration Fleet. Long range. Sensors are picking up massive, artificial structures hidden among the asteroids. Marcus nodded, feeling Thurvinian's presence in his mind. The Elder Dragon was back on Kepler 442b, but their permanent mental link meant he could experience everything Marcus saw and felt. It was like having a constant advisor who possessed thousands of years of wisdom. The Vanguard dragons have been isolated for over a millennium, came Thurvinian's mental voice. They may be suspicious of outsiders, even other dragons. We'll be careful, Marcus replied silently. Then, speaking aloud to the bridge crew, he added, Remember, these dragons have been hiding for a very long time. They've probably developed their own customs and ways of doing things. We need to respect that. Fireleth, who had insisted on joining this expedition despite her young age, perked up from her position near the communications station. She had grown considerably over the past few months and was now almost the size of a small spacecraft. The long-range transmissions are getting clearer. They're using an old dialect, but I can understand it. What are they saying? Marcus asked. They're arguing, Fireleth said with obvious amusement. Half of them want to hide deeper in the asteroid field, and half want to come out and meet us. It sounds just like the debates back home when we first met you. Marcus smiled. Some things apparently never changed, regardless of species or time period. The tendency to disagree about how to handle new situations seemed to be universal. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Chun from the sensor station, "we're getting multiple contact signatures. There are definitely artificial structures here, but they're unlike anything in our databases." As the ship moved closer, the hidden dragon habitat began to reveal itself. What had appeared to be ordinary asteroids were actually carefully camouflaged living spaces. Crystalline domes covered with rocky exteriors housed what looked like entire cities. Connecting tunnels linked the various structures, creating a network that sprawled across hundreds of kilometers. "By the burning stars," Marcus whispered. "It's beautiful." The dragons had turned the asteroid field into a work of art. Gardens grew in low-gravity domes, with plants that seemed to thrive in the unique conditions. Forges and workshops sparkled with the light of dragon fire, creating tools and artwork with techniques that had been forgotten by the rest of the galaxy. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "Audio and visual." The main screen flickered to life, showing the image of an ancient dragon whose scales had turned silver with age. Scars marked her hide, and one of her horns had been broken off long ago. But her eyes burned with intelligence and wariness. "I am a Strawwing the Exile," the dragon said, speaking in a dialect so old that Marcus needed Thervinian's help to understand it completely. "You claim to bring word of restoration, but we have heard such promises before. Speak your purpose, strangers." Marcus stepped forward, feeling the weight of responsibility. "Honored Strawwing, I am Marcus Chun, speaker for the renewed alliance between humans and dragons. We bring greetings from Thervinian the Elder and the Dragon Council of Kepler 442b. Strawwing's eyes widened slightly. "Thervinian still lives?" "We lost contact with his enclave centuries ago." "He lives and prospers," Marcus confirmed. "As do many others we have found." "The age of hiding is ending, Honored One. The galaxy has changed, and there is room once again for dragons among the stars." "Show me," a Strawling demanded. "Prove that this is not another deception by the younger races." Marcus activated the ship's holographic display system. Projecting images from Kepler 442b, a Strawwing watched silently as scenes unfolded showing dragons, working alongside humans and Zephyrians, the thriving embassy complex, and the successful mining operations that had restored damaged ecosystems, but it was the final image that made a Strawwing gasp. It showed Fireleth teaching a group of human children how to work with crystal formations, the young dragon patiently answering their endless questions while their parents watched with amazement rather than fear. "The young ones learn together," a Strawwing whispered. "As it was in the ancient times?" "As it can be again," Marcus said gently. "We're not asking you to abandon your sanctuary if you're not ready. But we wanted you to know that you have choices now. The galaxy is beginning to remember that dragons are allies, not monsters." A Strawwing was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke to someone off-screen in rapid dragon speech. Marcus caught fragments of the conversation, arguments about safety, debates about trust, and underlying all of it, a deep longing for connection with the wider universe. "We will send representatives," a Strawwing said finally. 3 volunteers will come aboard your vessel to see for themselves what you offer. If they judge your words to be true, then we will consider emergence." "That's all we can ask," Marcus replied. "We'll be honored to receive your representatives." The next few hours were filled with careful negotiations about the meeting protocols. The Vanguard Dragons had developed elaborate security procedures during their long isolation. Every detail had to be discussed and agreed upon before they would risk sending anyone to the New Harmony. When the dragon representatives finally arrived, they came in a ship that took Marcus's breath away. It appeared to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that flowed like liquid metal. Crystalline windows provided visibility, while what looked like living metal formed the hull. "That's not technology," Marcus said in amazement. "That's art." "It's both," Fireleth replied. "The Vanguard Dragons have been perfecting biotechnological integration for centuries. They've learned to grow their tools instead of forging them." The three representatives were unlike any dragons Marcus had encountered before. Their scales had an iridescent quality that shifted colors as they moved, and their builds were more streamlined than the dragons of Kepler 442b. Centuries of living in zero gravity had changed them. The leader introduced herself as Stellarwing, daughter of a Strawwing. Despite her exotic appearance, Marcus could sense the same fundamental dragon nature that connected all of their species. "You are the human who carries the Maker Bond," she said, studying Marcus intently. "I can feel the ancient knowledge flowing through you." "I'm one of them," Marcus confirmed. "We've discovered that the Maker Bond was never truly lost. There are other humans who carry it, and we're working to find them all." "Show us your evidence," requested the second representative, who had introduced himself as Voidfang over the next several hours. Marcus and his team shared everything they had learned about the renewed Human-Dragon Alliance. They showed technical specifications for the cooperative technologies, economic data from the successful mining partnerships, and most importantly, personal testimonies from both species about how the relationship was working. The third representative, a young dragon named Cosmic Flame, was particularly interested in Fireleth's experiences. "You work directly with human younglings?" she asked. "All the time," Fireleth replied enthusiastically. "Human children are wonderful. They ask the most interesting questions, and they're not afraid of anything. One of them asked me if I could teach her to breathe fire, and when I explained that only dragons could do that, she asked if I could teach her to build things with fire instead. And could you?" "Of course." We built the most amazing crystal sculpture together. She had ideas I never would have thought of. Stellarwing listened to these exchanges with obvious fascination. In our isolation, we have forgotten what it is like to share wonder with other species. Perhaps it is time to remember. As the day progressed, Marcus could see the Vanguard representatives becoming more relaxed and interested. They toured the ship, met with human crew members, and most importantly, spent time talking with Fireleth about what life was like in the renewed alliance. That evening, Stellarwing approached Marcus privately. "Your offer is tempting," she said. "But my people have good reason to be cautious. We have been betrayed before by species who claim to offer friendship. What happened?" Marcus asked. 4 centuries ago, a trade delegation came to our previous home. They spoke of mutual benefit and shared prosperity. We trusted them enough to reveal our location and capabilities. Stellarwing's eyes grew distant with painful memory. They returned with warships. We barely escaped with our lives. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. "What species? Does it matter?" The lesson was clear. Trust leads to betrayal when dealing with the younger races. "Not all species are the same," Marcus said carefully. "And times have changed. The galaxy has grown more civilized." "Perhaps," Stellarwing said. "But can you guarantee our safety if we emerge? Can you promise that no one will try to exploit or attack us?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "No," he said finally. "I can't guarantee perfect safety. The galaxy still has dangerous elements, and there are probably species who would see dragons as a threat or an opportunity. But I can promise that you won't face those dangers alone. The Alliance is growing stronger every day, and we protect our own." Stellarwing studied him with ancient eyes. "You speak honestly, even when honesty is not convenient. That gives your words more weight." 3 days later, the Vanguard Dragons announced their decision. They would begin a gradual emergence, starting with expanded contact through the Alliance network. They would share some of their biotechnological innovations in exchange for protection and support from the allied species. But most importantly, they agreed to send young dragons like Cosmic Flame to live and study in Alliance territories, learning how to interact with the wider galaxy before their entire community emerged. As the new Harmony prepared to depart, Marcus stood once again on the observation deck, watching the hidden dragon habitat. In a few years, this would no longer be a secret sanctuary. It would be another proud member of what people were starting to call the Second Great Alliance. "The Makers would be proud," came Thervinian's mental voice. "I hope so," Marcus replied. But this is bigger than what the makers started. This time, we're building something that will last. Yes, Thurvanian agreed. Because this time, we're building it together. Marcus smiled as the ship turned toward their next destination. 3 more dragon enclaves had been discovered in the past month, and rumors were spreading about human colonies that had maintained maker traditions. The restoration was just beginning, but already the galaxy was changing. Trade routes were being established between allied worlds. New technologies were being developed through cross-species cooperation. Most importantly, young beings of all species were growing up together, learning that differences could be sources of strength rather than fear. The age of isolation was ending. The age of cooperation had begun.